Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. So today is the 1st of September, which means that this is the new release from Phoibos. Their new Eagle Ray has officially been launched, so you can get your hands on one. It's under pre-order, I'm sure, and under the early bird prices. Now, the Eagle Ray is Phoibos's most iconic watches. You instantly know what this watch is by the way it looks without necessarily knowing the brand. And what they've done is basically not even a reissue, they've just remade it in new colors. So I don't need to go into too much detail, I hope, because you guys are well aware of what the previous Eagle Ray looked like. Plenty of reviews out there. But what you need to know is that there's 4 new colors. This is the pastel range. So you've got yellow, white, blue, and green, all in these, not so vibrant, not so saturated pastel colors. So the one I have, as you can see, is the blue. Now, spec-wise, nothing has changed. You've got double dome sapphire crystal. You've got a Seiko NH35 automatic movement, which powers this watch. It's the movement that powers all the entry-level Seiko divers. You've also got 200 meters of water resistance, being a dive watch. You've got a full stainless steel case construction and bracelet. You've got a dual crown system here, so almost like a compressor. You've got the secondary crown, which does operate the internally rotating bezel. Now, with regards to dimensions on this watch, similar thing as before, 41mm at the diameter, 13.8mm thick. You've got a lug-to-lug of 47mm, although because this does not have female end links, it increases to 53.5. You've got lug width of 20mm, the bracelet tapers from 20 down to 18, and an overall weight of a very substantial 175 grams. This watch does feel very heavy duty in hand. So because this watch is being launched today on the 1st of September, these are the prices. $375 on the RRP, or just under £300 for us in the UK. But with the early bird coupon code, which I'll give you guys right now, EB75, you can save a further $75 or £60 off the RRP. So because a lot of you guys have already seen this watch and this is just new dials, I'm going to get straight into it. Looking at the dial construction, you've got a very nice dial. I mean, the color itself is, I think, slightly textured. As I said, it is a bit toned down in terms of vibrancy. You've got your hour markers applied as per usual, a mix of batons and circles. And with the circular markers and the batons, you've got this black outline giving you good legibility against the dial. You've also got train track style minute track around that dial, and you've got the classical syringe hands, again blacked outlines, just to give you that legibility against that dial. The red tip on the second hand nicely matches the red text just above the 6, and also that red triangular outline that you get on the inner rotating bezel. So in terms of the visuals, they are pleasant. They are the same as before, just a few different dial options. You've got the printed Phoibos logo just below the 12. Everything looks as it should, and you've also got a very lovely blacked out date frame on the date window at the 3 o'clock position. Now, Phoibos state this watch has 15 layers of BGW9 lume applied to the hour markers and the handset, and also that internally rotating bezel. What that means is you get a very punchy and bright BGW9 lume, and that 15 layers is going to last you for a very long time. I'm not sure if it's going to last you the whole night, but I don't think any lume lasts past 24 hours or to that extent, but it's going to last you a very long time, and it is very bright, visible, and as I said, no patchiness and very solid lume. Now, moving on to the sapphire crystal, you've got a domed sapphire glass, and again, Phoibos state with this one, you've got 3 layers of AR coating under the crystal, which gives you, again, amazing clarity. And I can say that, yeah, under extreme angles, you don't get any glare. You do have very crisp clarity, seeing this nice blue dial. Now, I do have one criticism on this dial. Now, while I think the proportions on the handset is spot on, they reach the ends of those minute tracks. I believe the hour markers, if you kind of step back and take a look, they're just a touch too small. I think the batons are a little too thin. And I think what causes that is the batons, they are a little too thin, or maybe we're just used to seeing thicker baton markers on dive watches, but this does look slightly disproportionate, and that's something I can't get away from. Maybe the markers are too far in on the dial, but again, looking back at it and really trying to see what the issue is, I think it is very thin baton markers that we've got at the 6 and 9. Well, there's only 2 of them, so it isn't that bad. But I think once you see that, you can't unsee it. I don't think it's much of a deal breaker, but it just looks slightly off. That's to my eyes anyway. Now, moving on to the case, or the bezel, should we start with? You've got this fluted ring around the bezel. I don't really understand what that does, because it's not a coin edge bezel. It's not a bezel that rotates. But yeah, it is part of the design, I suppose, and it is constructed nicely. There's no issues there, but I just don't kind of understand why that is. Maybe it's just an aesthetic thing. It doesn't look bad at all, but it does make me question why it's there, being someone who's looked at this watch the first time. Now, the crowns themselves, you've got a crown at 4, which operates on movement. It's got a very good grip on there. You can see that knurling just looks like it's come straight off a dumbbell. It's giving my calluses a bit of an itch. But yeah, the crown functions beautifully. The threading is very smooth. You've got very positive pops and clicks, no problems there. And the screw down feature, again, the threading is very nice. You've got the phoibos brand on there, and of course the secondary crown, which is at the 2 o'clock, which operates that bezel. Equally as smooth. Now what that does is the bezel rotation is actually very firm, not too firm, but it does have the slightest bit of resistance. And the reason I say that, anyone who's used a Seiko Alpinist, you'll notice that the resistance on those inner bezels are non-existent, and often you wear those watches and before you know it, it's knocked you off into north, west, south, whatever, right? But with this, it's yeah, there's just a touch of resistance there, which allows you to feel where the actual ring is. And then when you press down and screw it down, what's really important is that doesn't turn. A lot of the times the gears still catch while you are screwing it down, which doesn't really help. So it's good to see that that has been thought of. Now moving on to the case finishing, very nicely done from phoibos. You've got linear, very soft brushing, almost satinized, equal and matching finishing on those end links, which gives you a very uniform look. And along the side of the case, you've got that highly polished bevel edge, and same on the other side, and horizontal fine brushing as well. Very smooth case. I don't feel any sharp edges. There is just a very slight edge under this, but it's not something that you're going to feel at all because of that very large and thick case back, which obviously has the phoibos emblem and all the specifications that you need. It is of course a screw down case back. The case, yeah, nicely finished. I can see definitely a premium feeling case. And also the end links do fit really well. I mean, just look at that, almost no gap. That is a very, very snug fit. And I mentioned at the start of the video, they're not female end links, but we'll see how that kind of affects, the wearability of this watch on my 6.5-inch wrist. In terms of the bracelet itself, it's a very nice bracelet. Not something that you'll see on a lot of dive watches. You've got a 5-link design, all linear brushed, but on your outer links, which are right next to the center link there, you've got these polished slithers on either side, which does distinguish those links from the bracelet as well, so it doesn't all look the same. The taper is from 20 down to 18, so not a very extreme or exaggerated taper, but very adequate for a heavy duty dive watch. Sometimes a very small taper doesn't really sit well and it makes the watch wear kind of top heavy. In terms of the links, you've got screw-in links, which is a positive, again a premium feature that we look for. You've got a fold over milled clasp with this brushed shell, twin pushes on either side, the phoibos branding in the center, very nice brushing, and you've got these beveled edges which also are brushed, 3 micro adjustments, which is just about adequate, I'd say. Now the clasp does feel quite solid, very positive click. So again, no issues on that side. So the watch overall is really well built. It feels solid. 175 grams is no joke. It is quite a weighty watch. The nailing on the crowns does help that stand out. Very good grip on there. So it gives you a good mix of a tooled watch style diver, but also it's got dressy elements, which is this coin edge bezel, which I don't really get. That polished lip around that bezel. The bracelet is slightly dressier, sportier than what you'd expect on a dive watch. But they've covered every element more or less. The only problem I have, and I still have, as I said it before, is these hour markers are disproportionate to the dial. You can see there's a huge gap between them, and the more I look at it, the more I see it. I just wish they were just a bit larger. Let's see how this looks on wrist. So here is what the 41mm phoibos looks like on my 6.5-inch wrist, and straight away you feel the presence of the watch. 41, it does feel a bit larger than that. It's quite a heavy case, 175 grams, but not too heavy. Obviously, I've all watches that are heavier. The fit is okay. It is very comfortable underneath the case. On wrist it fits fine. That lug to lug, which those male end links do have a very slight impact on this smaller wrist size, because you can see the first link is actually not touching the sides of my wrist, which I kind of prefer. But anything around the 7-inch mark on wrist size will be perfect for this and above. It's got a very smooth bracelet as well, and it's got a very good presence as well. feels solid on wrist. A couple of points of observation on those links. So the screw-in links, it's like Phoibos have used Gorilla Glue and rather than Loctite, because you can see the residue all the way halfway up that screw. So I did end up damaging the screw heads slightly. Bit of an effort to take out screw-in links, which defeats the purpose of them. It's meant to be very easy. But you guys know I do struggle with links, and I'm assuming some of you guys will do also. So yeah, just be careful on those screws. There's a fair bit of residue that comes out of those holes, which is again that glue, so an excessive use of glue. We don't need that much Phoibos. Please put in the adequate amount so you're not fighting with those screw heads and damaging them. And yeah, that's it really. You know, overall I gave you my summary just before the wrist shot, and that's what I think about the watch. Really well built, great finishing all over. Nice dial options if you like pastel colors. Good presence on the wrist. It's got the specs there, you know, 3 layers of air coating and 15 layers of BGW9 and what have you. Good everything except the proportions on that dial, those hour markers. That is just slightly off-putting for me. But that's it, guys. So enjoy the $75 or £60 discount that's in the early bird price. Hopefully I got the video and just in time so you can place your order on one of these should you choose to. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section about any observations I've had on the watch or your observations. A lot of you guys give really helpful feedback and very critical kind of comments as well, which I really enjoy reading. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.